迷子かね、鋼の。
どこぞの無能がバカやってねえか見に来てやったからこんな目に遭ってんだよ。
誰も見に来いなんて頼んでないぞ。よく
言うぜ。俺とスカーがいなけりゃてめえ絶対に道踏み外してただろ。
私があそこで踏みとどまれたのは注意の。
Come on. Sounds like
やかましいな。敵に見つかる。
Buggy the Clown.
スカー、今のうちに礼を言っておくわ。大佐の説得をしてくれたこと。あなたたちイシュバール人は私のようなものに礼を言われても腹が立つだけでしょうけど、あの人取り戻せたかもしれない。
I was speaking of this in the discussion.
ありがとう。
He could tell she means that. It's legitimate.
感謝の言葉など。
Okay, Scar.
作戦本部はブリッグズ軍が占拠した。クレイミン准将を含む13名を拘束中。
Time for the ultimatum.
作戦本部は
Choose.
我々ブリッグズ軍が占拠した。中央軍兵士は即刻戦闘を停止せよ。我々はクレミン准将を拘束中である。
戦車で派手に撃ってきたのは錬金術による穴掘りの音をかき消すためか。
そういうこと。
I love her voice.
東西南北全門何があっても開けるな。一匹たりとも市街地に出してはならん。司令部敷地内で殲滅しろ。
アイマンアラバムを一発。
He's lashing out now.
なんという執念。いかん。
Oh, not this time. Okay.
しぶとい女将軍殺す。
Love that. Oh, look at this. Okay.
逃げろというのか。
Not again.
我が輩にまた戦場から逃げろというのか。そんな真似できるわけがなかろうが。
Kind of reminds you of Nappa. Love that.
いいね。逃げない覚悟。いい男じゃないの。ま、うちの旦那の方が数万倍いい男だけどさ、女性の将校さん。ってことは、あなたがアームストロング少将ね。
Oh, I love that. So elegant. The step she took. The technique.
いたよ。
Yes. We got two muscle men in the house now.
あちらの御人を。
うちの旦那。
That's right. Iconic. Together. Double uppercut. Oh my god. How much longer can he go? How much longer can they go?
まだ動くのか。
Oh, is that it? All right, big man. Time's up.
死ぬの。死ぬ。死ぬってなんだ。考えるのめんどくせえ。生きてるのも
Wow.
めんどくせえ。
Man. That's another one. The bromance. A lot of blood loss.
少し休む。
はあとはお任せください。
Look at this collection.
どこのどなたか存ぜぬが、助たち感謝
Yeah,
する。
they'll get along.
どういたしまして。さぞや名のある格闘家とお見受けする
Just a
が。
housewife.
私？い
Yeah.
えいえ、主婦で錬金術師。知ってるでしょ？エルリック兄弟って。あれの身内みたいなものよ。
あなたが泉カーティス。
そうよ。
エルリック兄弟もここに。
ええ、来てるはずよ。
Yeah, about that.
ちょっと、休んでなさいって。そんな傷で。
若い者が戦っておるのに、我ら大人が寝ているわけにはいきますまい。
これからこの世を背負っていく若者に、今この世を背負っている大人の我らの生き
Wow,
様を
love
見せん
that.
で何
Love
とす
that.
る。
そんじゃ私らも手伝いますか。
おお、ありがたい。お二人がいれば100人力ですな。
どうやら私、人柱とかいうやつらしいんで、ある程度戦ったら、とんずら動かせてもらう。
Yeah.
やばいやつに捕まる前にね。
感動の再会なのにむっつりか。
There's a reason for that.
お前、つまらんやつになったな。
A husk. He wasn't like that
昔はも
before.
っと感情が豊かで面白いやつだったのに。色欲、強欲、怠惰、暴食、嫉妬、憤怒、傲慢。人には7つの罪があるという。確かに過ぎた欲は身を滅ぼすが、その一方でそれらの感情すべてが人間を理解するためには欠かせぬものでもあるはずだ。
No.
危ないな。やめてくれよ。俺喧嘩あんまり強くないんだからさ。
Bit of a test, right? I don't think he truly wants to kill him or anything, but because he knows he'll be fine. Ooh, there's a dread. Ooh,
なぜホムンクルスを作り、そばに置き、父と言わせた。
love the different types of dragons that they.
家族というコミュニティを小馬鹿にすらしていたのに。お前本当は人間のように家族が欲しかったのではないのか。
I got him. I got him.
私は人間になりたいのではない。完全な存在になりたいのだ。もらい受ける。
Okay.
やっと表情が変わったな。
何をした？
お前がしなかったことをしただけさ。わからんだろうな。お前は感情と一緒に大切なものを捨ててしまったんだ。
大切なもの？
簡単に勝てると思うなよ。俺たちに。
僕とハインケルさんだけで大丈夫ですよ。
いや、しかし大丈夫だって。任せとけ。ほら、そんじゃ行くぞ。1、2の。
Oh no, that's Bradley, isn't it? It's gotta be. Oh my god.
作戦本部へ投降しろ。早く行け。
はい、ありがとうございます。
Yeah, I was just gonna say, those are pretty ladies, my dude. But prepare yourself. The big dog might be. He might be here.
バッカニア隊が正門を制圧しました。抵抗少なく東方の損害警備、正門エントランスも制圧。
Hold on, hold on.
陣地としているとのことです。
中央司令部の9割をブリックス軍が掌握しました。
我々の勝利です。
Hold on, hold on. I mean, it was an impressive operation, but
大佐間に合わなかったな。
ただいま将軍。
oh, that's
私が留守の間に
Return of the King.
これより私自ら指揮を取り反逆者を排除する。
Oh, oh no. Now they're all. Oh, he lives. Oh, the panic. I have chills right now. Hey. Go on, give me a pen shot. There it is. How about that shot? It's gonna end. Ah! Woo! God damn. Alright, folks, episode 55. I mean, that is just a phenomenal ending, isn't it? I mean, I must admit, as you saw, I was incredibly excited to see King Bradley back, to see Wrath. I mean, I think I'm truly going to see Wrath at this point. The true nature of Wrath. I mean, I've seen glimpses of it, right, throughout the series. The things he is capable of, right? But now I think these people that are around this area, right, the people that are celebrating, the people that are in the immediate front lines as of this point, as far as King Bradley goes, they need to prepare themselves. They do, because they're about to get their shit rocked. Holy shit. Yeah, that's got to be one of the best endings of the series. My goodness. The thing is, they hint at it, right? I mean, it's not even a hint. It's more so, it tells you, okay, he's here. He's heading towards Central, right? He's in the background. At that point, he needs to pay no attention to Al, right? One of the sacrifices. At the end of the day, Al is here in Central, so he doesn't need to pay him any attention at the moment. But from that point on, everything just kind of becomes uneasy, right? In terms of all of these celebrations that are going on, in terms of the things they think they've achieved at this point, right? I believe they said that it's under control, 90% under control at this point. But again, there's that dread that builds up, because as audience member at this point, okay, sooner or later, something's going to happen here. He's going to come in somehow, and I think the revelation itself is actually masterful, so effective in terms of just stopping everyone dead in their tracks. The triumphant score playing in the background, a lot of high fives and fist pumping, and a lot of yelling. Boom. Out of nowhere, silence. Silence falls as the king speaks. Listen, man, Return of the King adequately describes the comeback, the return, as expected, of course. I don't think anyone ever thought that he's gone. And he comes back in at the most crucial stage of the story as well, right? My goodness. This is so exciting. I mean, yes, he's kind of quite the threat. I mean, he is the ultimate threat to a lot of the people that are trying to, take their country back. That's for sure. But listen, man, I'm excited. I'm excited about his return. I'm sure many of you felt the same thing. And then, of course, the photography aspect of it, his big return, I thought it was handled beautifully. I mean, I knew, I could just see and tell that, him in front of Central, in front of the gates, and given, the stature of Central, it's almost kind of like a pyramid, isn't it? In its structure. I just knew it's going to have this pan shot of him, right? And I got it. I got it almost immediately, because to me, it felt like that would have been the most perfect depiction of this return, right? The framing of it, and the actual camera movement of it. My goodness, that was beautiful. It was beautiful. And even the line of dialogue itself is just so effective in its simplicity. Gentlemen, I'm back. Coming from King Bradley's mouth, that is one of the most frightening things you can think of, yet it's so simple. Beautiful in its simplicity, right? Though I noticed he says shogun, right? It's a thing that happens in anime a lot. You'll hear a really specific term, but you'll see in the translation, it's not really translating that, right? I mean, that's the nature of translating, right? You know, the translator usually has to go for something that is functional, something that is the best bet, essentially, the best option. So he said shogun. I know that means general, right? So maybe someone can let me know that exact line of dialogue, because in my translation on the Blu-ray, that's the translation I got, right? But you know, the reason I react to Shogun a lot is because you know, back from the Pride FC days in Japan, one of my favorites of all time was Shogun, Mauricio Shogun, who he's a Brazilian fighter. YouTube him, Pride FC Shogun. You'll see. But I loved his moniker, right? His nickname that he chose. And it just made complete sense as well, right? Given that it is Japan. But yeah, he's one of the only few that's left now in terms of the sins, right? You've got pride, you've got greed, and you've got wrath. That's it. Just the three of them. And of course, you know, one of them out of the three is on this side now, on the side of humanity, perhaps. Greed, that is. So, you know, greed is still kind of MIA at the moment. But you know, he might be around the corner. I'm sure he's around somewhere at this point. You know, earlier, I think maybe in the last episode, at one point I thought maybe May is actually even sensing greed, but no, she was just kind of sensing that large presence below that is meant to be father, or dwarf in the flask, rather. Even though, as Hohenheim noted, you know, you extracted these sins and you made them call you father. It's a term that he wanted. It's a term that he kind of puts out there. And of course, I'll get to that meeting, right? Father or dwarf in the flask and Hohenheim. There's some really fascinating things that are coming out of that. But in terms of King Bradley being back, yeah, you know, does he know about his wife at this point? Right? They must have filled him in, maybe. I don't know. It's possible because he's really quite calm at the moment still. So there is a possibility that he doesn't actually know yet. And, you know, of course, there's that possibility once he does find out, how exactly is he going to react to that news? Now, in terms of the immediate follow-up, at the moment, they showed us Buccaneer closest to the gates, Buccaneer and Fallman, I suppose. So are they about to be first in line to go and confront the returning King Bradley? I mean, if that is the case, yeah, there's not going to be much of a fight, right? Not much of a fight. Let's see how it all plays out. It's damn exciting. It's one of the most exciting moments of the entire anime for me. You know, the moment I realized that was him in the background, and then the return right at the end, and the execution of that return, beautiful, just beautiful. And of course, overall as an episode, there's a lot going on here. You've got the Armstrong siblings meeting Sig and Izumi Sensei, and that is some meeting, isn't it? Then you've got the death of yet another sin, Sloth. Who finally gets to rest. Again, more on that later. You've got, again, Hohenheim and Dwarf in the Flask down below. And they even managed to give us a continuation of the last episode, the conclusion to the last episode, right? Mustang, Ed, Scar, Hawkeye. Of course, you get the return of the banter between Mustang and Ed. You've got Hawkeye and Scar having a more serious moment, right? And this is the thing I was kind of discussing, right? How exactly are people like Hawkeye and Mustang? I mean, in this specific case, it's Hawkeye at the moment. And of course, you know, I'm sure inside he does have things he would love to say, or like to say at least, but maybe the timing isn't right at the moment. Maybe once the job is done, potentially he'll say his thank yous, right? But yeah, Hawkeye, yeah, she understood the thing Scar did for him back then, for them back then. Right, given again their history and the things that have been done to his people and him personally as well, right? So I thought that was a beautiful moment, and I love that Scar himself also kind of understands and kind of clocks and realizes she truly means it. This is genuine. This is not just an empty thank you, right? I love that expression on his face, right? And then of course he thinks that it wasn't necessary. She doesn't need to thank him. Love that. But how beautiful is it to see Scar now in this position? The person he is now. You know, I've got to say, Scar's character arc, character progression, development, and the things that his character arc had to say, I think Arakawa has really nailed it. It's one of the best of the series, right? Scar and that character arc altogether. I mean, it's not completed yet. There's still more that needs to happen, right? There is more that is going to happen, given his own newfound path. So yeah. Single-digit episodes, like I said in the last discussion, single-digit episodes left at this point. So it's getting there. It's getting there now, folks. It's a final stretch. It's truly the final stretch. But yeah, I really love that Hawkeye understands that, his role in that was crucial, and kind of leaning into his own cautionary tale and providing this aspect or this perspective to Mustang. Yeah, it was crucial. It was so crucial, right? It truly kind of snapped him back to reality, back to himself. And Hawkeye understood that in that moment. So I love that. I love that scene. Of course, it was great to see Ed and Mustang going at it once again. I mean, Ed's voice acting at one point was really beginning to sound like Buggy the Clown, who I adore. I adore Buggy the Clown and that voice acting. But I just said it's the last stretch, the final stretch, single-digit episodes. There's still a matter of that final and fifth sacrifice, right? And then, since really early on in the series, it's been kind of clear that, this potential important candidate for sacrifice is meant to be Mustang. So there's still that aspect of it that needs to play out. How exactly is he going to become, or, kind of cross from being an important potential candidate for sacrifice to becoming an important sacrifice? Something still needs to happen. And for that to happen, he's going to have to perform taboo, because of course the other sacrifices have faced the truth, right? Izumi Sensei even brings it up. She's like, I'm here to help out for a bit, but I'm going to book it out of here. I mean, I doubt that she's going to book it out of here, because I do believe that aspect of it is going to happen. And as I am on the topic of Izumi Sensei, how about that meetup, right? Izumi Sensei, Sig, and then of course the Armstrong siblings. How about that muscle bros bromance that happens almost immediately on site, right? It's kind of like gym bros. You just know, right? They see each other, they see the awesome muscles, the impressive muscles, and that's all they needed to bond, to come together, and kind of really almost intrinsically link up in these double attacks. It was quite the sight, And then of course you've got these strong female characters in Izumi Sensei and Olivier Armstrong. And even though they might have different backgrounds, you see that there is this mutual respect. Certainly a lot of respect there, no doubt about it, right? And I love seeing them kind of, come across each other on screen and having those moments together. I know it's really unrealistic, but it could have been a funny moment if she actually did somehow get a chance to bring up the fact that she was the one that was around Briggs that whole time, right? They brought that up in the beginning of that arc. But of course, there's no reason to randomly bring that up. But that's one of the things us, the audience, can really kind of think about, right? As a fun moment. But beyond Izumi Sensei and Sig coming across the Armstrongs and kind of teaming up, isn't it beautiful as a whole to see so many of these people coming together and working together and shouldering, their burdens and the burdens of these others, right? Arm in arm, as a collective, right? Part of a whole. It's beautiful to see. It really is. And it's going on all over the place. Everyone's playing a part. Even some of these nameless soldiers are putting in quite the effort, making quite the effort, sorry. It's great to see. But also, something I forgot to mention about King Bradley's return is, the confusion it's going to cause now, and it is already causing, because you see some of those central soldiers kind of turn sides, right? They are siding with Olivier in there. They are working for Olivier at one point, essentially. Now, everything's kind of all confusing. Also, let's not forget that it was the death of a sin, right? Yes, ultimately, it's not the most memorable in comparison to some of the others, especially in comparison to the last episode. But yeah, hopefully now he can kind of have eternal rest in death, right? After kind of living a life of constructed misery, right? Like I said, it's not the most memorable death, And even in its handling, it's more of a comedic tone, isn't it? You have the muscle bros essentially teaming up to take him out. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, of course, it has a lot of those qualities of the ironic nature of the death of these sins. But the one thing that remains a constant is that it's sad. It's still sad to see these sins die. Maybe I wasn't as sad as the time Gluttony died, or maybe even in the last episode, right? Losing Envy in that manner. But it was still sad. You know, his final moments, him kind of reflecting on his existence, the nature of his existence. Always sad. It's always sad to see one of these sins die out. And, you know, this episode once again reiterates that these sins are extracted directly from the being that is the dwarf in the flask, Father, right? They're not some separate things. These are extracted directly from him. And you see, you know, Hohenheim kind of taunts him and kind of brings up that harsh truth to his face. Hohenheim tells him, you actually wanted a family like the humans have. And he understands. He understands the nature of the dwarf in the flask, right? He even tells him, you know, this is an emotional reunion. You're really quite sullen, right? And listen, it's really quite the contrast, quite the stark contrast from the time he comes across the Elric brothers. And I'm speaking of Father, right? Totally different demeanor and attitude and disposition at that point. And one of the main differences since that meeting is the fact that he took out, or he extracted, the sin of greed once again, right? And gave it to, or put it in the body of Ling, right? And then you have Greedling. So I'm thinking that certainly plays a major part in this change. And it makes sense. It actually completely just adds up, doesn't it? Right? Because greed is just that type of individual, isn't he? In terms of the personality, right? And it's just that type of sin, right? At the end of the day, you can learn quite a bit, or, you know, you have been learning, or I've been learning quite a bit about Father, or the dwarf in the flask, through the sins. And that feels like it's by design, clearly, right? These are extracted directly from him. So, you know, through the sins, you know, seeing them kind of behave and exist and make connections and bonds, you know, their desires. And by connections and bonds, I mean, you know, with each other, essentially. You know, I've spoken of how there's these little groups within the big group that they have, right? Certain connections, lust and gluttony, lust, envy, and gluttony, right? Then you've got greed, who kind of had his own found family, right? Wanted something of his own. And then, of course, you've got envy that is kind of triggered in this moment as well, right? As Father brings that up. Sorry, not Father, as Hohenheim brings up the idea of him actually wanting the things that humans have, right? So that was directly from him, right? I actually even brought that point up, didn't I? In the discussion for the last one, that this is actually Father's envy on display, right? And it's pitiful. At points it was pitiful, wasn't it? But the rest of the scene itself is really fantastic, isn't it? You know, of course, first of all, a bit of a showdown. Of course, neither one of them are going to die from any of this, but it was still really fascinating to see, right? You see that Hohenheim doesn't even realize until a few moments later, right? That, oh, okay, he's trying to fight me, right? He's certainly not a fighter, that's for sure. That's for sure. But that doesn't mean he's not impressive and effective in his own right, from a different perspective. But I love how both their stone dragons are, again, you know, east and west in their depictions of dragons, essentially. Love that, you know, both of those kind of heading towards each other. And the thing is, I saw Al kind of construct this stone dragon himself as well a few episodes ago. It really kind of resembled the head of a Viking's longbow. But I think the most fascinating part of this is the dwarf in the flask, or Father, trying to extract Hohenheim's Philosopher's Stone. Now, ultimately, they mentioned that he's essentially, you know, a massive Philosopher's Stone in the shape of a human at this point, right? So, yeah, at that point, Father legitimately tried to kill him, right? Take all of that for himself. And you see, for a little bit, it's happening, right? He's kind of juicing him, isn't he? But to me, it also felt like Hohenheim was expecting something like this, and you see that he was ready to counteract it, right? He knew that the dwarf is going to attempt something like this, right? Now, something really interesting happened there. He was rejected, essentially, by Hohenheim's Philosopher's Stone, and he's really quite confused about this. So this is something that is unique to Hohenheim in his understanding of his own Philosopher's Stone, or the souls within his Philosopher's Stone. And he does tell him as much, doesn't he? You know, I did something that you could never think of doing, or you would never think of doing, right? So to him, it is something that the dwarf in the flask is not capable of, because it's something he just couldn't think about, right? Or his nature is not going to allow him to even think about this aspect of it. And I do think that another really interesting point of this, or part of this, is him saying, you're not going to beat us that easily. Us, right? Now, you start thinking of a few possibilities. By us, does he just mean humanity as a whole? And he's kind of counting himself as a part of humanity, right? Or it's something a bit more personal, a bit more direct. As far as Hohenheim goes, is he speaking of, or is he referring to himself and all of the souls within his Philosopher's Stone? I mean, ultimately, he is the Philosopher's Stone, right? In the shape of a human. I'm kind of leaning towards that, maybe, right? Because they've shown us he seems to have a special relationship with those souls. He has so much respect for them. You know, they showed us that anytime he needs to use any of them, he's just so apologetic and so respectful, right? Is there a possibility that that respect has been reciprocated towards Hohenheim from within, right? That is something I could totally see happening, given his treatment of these souls, right? And I've only really seen it on screen. You also kind of have to look at it from an off-screen perspective as well. He's existed for hundreds and hundreds of years, and this is how he's treated them, the souls within the Philosopher's Stone. So there's that aspect of it, right? You know, respect for the souls within the Philosopher's Stone is not something Father or the Dwarf in the Flask could even care to think about, right? And I think this is the thing he's kind of alluding to, something you could never do, or you would never do. This might be it. So yeah, I'm really quite excited to see the continuation of this scene and that rejection that just kind of happened. It was actually quite reminiscent of Agent Smith trying to turn Neo, right? But then he gets rejected as well. Right then, I think this should do it for this one, folks. If you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, giving your thoughts. If you're interested in the next few episodes right now, or perhaps even timer-based full length, consider checking out the Patreon page and potentially supporting the channel. If you are interested, the links are in the description and the pinned comment. Also links to social media, you know, things like Twitter and Instagram, if that's your thing. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me, folks. And thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is. And I appreciate you guys stopping by. I know, you know, the preference has always been dub. So I appreciate the people that do show up for this and are open to experiencing the sub as well. But yeah, thank you once again for joining me, and I do hope to see you again soon for episode 56. Until then, take it easy.